realize that we don't need to live in fear. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. So we have to remember the money that you have in your bank, the money that you save maybe for your retirement, was never yours. It was God's. And so you have to give it up. If you lose it, understand that it's not yours anyways. And so your children, it's hard to do. I have 3 children of my own. And for me to say they're not mine is tough, because I'm always telling people, oh, those are my children. But truly, those are God's children. Okay? And if something happens to them and they go to live with God, that's God's choice. They're His children, not mine. So we have to realize that as well. And so then the other thing that we've been talking about is the 4 rules of Olympic success. Now, we've gone over 3 of them, and I'm just going to remind you what those 3 were. One was that we should seek and develop our gifts. And so sometimes it's very difficult to know, well, what does God truly want of me? What is it that God has in store for me, and really, what should I be doing for God? And so some people, when they become Christians, or some people, it may even make them afraid to become a Christian. I have a great friend of mine that he didn't know if he should be a Christian because he thought he was going to have to sell everything and go to Africa and live with the poor, and that's what he truly believed. So he didn't know if he wanted to do that. He didn't know if that was worth giving up his life for. And so he realized afterwards that no, you don't. That's not necessarily, God's not calling us all to give up everything and go to Africa. Okay, now some people He is, and in being obedient, they'll do that. But we all have gifts and talents, and there's some great ways to find that out. Churches have programs. Life Keys is a great one that can help you to find out what are your spiritual gifts. One of the ways that I think that I personally have found out in my own life is when I started feeling passion for something and I get excited for it, and I would die for some of these things that I'm doing. I realized that's what God created me for. And that's what Martin Luther King Jr. meant by, if a person isn't living for something worth dying for, then they're not really living life. And so we have to look at that and see, when we start seeing those things, then we'll realize, what does God have in store for us? Then we must possess a superior plan. Okay, God has a plan for us. We want to listen to Him and ask Him, what is that plan? Because that's what it truly means to have a superior plan, where God is guiding and directing all your plans, and you're listening to what He has to say. And then we should follow a superior plan, because if God tells me to do something, just like He told Jonah to do something, and I just say, you know what, God, you're wrong, I'm going the other direction, then guess what? I'm not following the plan that God has for me, and I'm probably going to end up having a lot of misery in my life, and I'm going to probably find out that I'm not going to enjoy life very much at all. And then we must be inspired to win, okay? Now we have to look at motivation versus inspiration, okay? Motivation truly is, I could sit here and I can yell at you guys and I can get you all excited and everything, but if you walk out of here and you're not truly inspired to make a difference or change in your health, guess what? This program will be maybe a week down and you'll be like, oh man, I'm done, I just can't do it. Or if that ice cream in the refrigerator is calling your name, guess what? If you're only motivated, you're not gonna win that battle with that ice cream. But if we're inspired, guess what? That's when we really start making a change. It's because it's inspiration, if we look at that word, means to be in the Spirit, okay? And if we can see that when we get inspired, that's when we can make huge changes in our life. Because I want you to look at, this is a picture of Peter. Now what did Peter do on Christ's last days before He was crucified, on His last night before He was crucified? He denied that he even knew Christ, okay? Because they started having doubts. They started wondering, well, I wonder if this really is the Son of God. Is this really the Messiah? Because if this was the Messiah, He's not supposed to die on a cross. And so this must not be who He says He is. Yet how many days, how many years did He spend following Christ? I mean, he was motivated to follow Christ. And when he was with Christ, he was strong and he was seeing miracles done. But when it came down to it, he denied Him. But then what did he do? He saw Jesus Christ die on a cross and then rise up again in 3 days. Do you think all of a sudden he had some inspiration? Absolutely, because what happened to him after that? He was persecuted for what he did. He went and spread the word, and he was killed for doing it. Because all of a sudden it shifted, and he said, you know what, I will die for this man, because this truly was the Son of God. And so we have to look at being inspired versus motivated, because motivation will never last. We need to be in the Spirit, okay? So, that can help us too. Being inspired can help us to eat for this principle of eating for three, because we want to eat for three. But if we're just motivated to do so, again, we may fail at that. So again, the principle for eating for God, when we look at Daniel, that's what he did. What did Daniel do? He denied that he was going to eat that food that the king set forth, even though that he could have been punished. He could have been put to death for saying, you know what, I don't want your food. And he said, you know what, I'm not going to desecrate my body with that. I'm not going to eat the food that the king's eating because it's spiritually unclean and because it will destroy my body too. And so he denied that. And so we also want to eat for our families, okay? We want to see that our family need us, okay? Our families are important and they want us to be healthy. And we need to be healthy so that we can serve them, so that we can help them, and that we can be what God has intended us to be as parents and as brothers, siblings, children. And so we want to eat for our families, and then finally we want to put ourselves last, but we also need to eat for ourselves, because without food you will die, okay? It's important that we realize that food does sustain life, okay? But again, we don't want to live to eat. We want to eat to live, okay? And that's what we have to look at when it comes to eating. So with nutrition, we want to, again, I keep saying how simple it truly is, okay? And really, when we look at the Body by God's approach to nutrition, it's not difficult, okay? What you want to start doing is adding more foods by God, and then you want to start eliminating and reducing food by man. And then finally, we want to follow the On-Diet Food Guide. Again, I've talked about this in the past, is how strict do we want to follow that? Well, we do want to follow it, but at the same time, we're all created uniquely and individually. And so one of the things that we need to do is look at how is our bodies created. And if you're having a hard time wondering what that truly is, I would highly recommend the place that you start is sitting down with either Christine or Dr. Craig or other nutritionists that can help guide you, that have been gifted, and let them show you what it is that your body individually truly needs. And so I would highly recommend you meeting with them to find out what is it that my body needs and how is it that my body can function best in the certain foods that I'm eating. And then with exercise, we want to be doing aerobic exercise. And there's just some wonderful studies that have been published recently. One of them says that if a woman exercises, does aerobic exercise, it actually reduces your risk of breast cancer up to 80%. Okay? That's pretty huge, isn't it? Because breast cancer, we've got these things, and I've participated in by helping out at the 3-day breast cancer walk by adjusting the walkers and such. And so we've got these walks, and we've got all these things that we're trying to raise money for, but if we look at it, really walking is actually the cure. And so we look at it, that exercise is going to be the thing that can, one of the things that can cure breast cancer. Now I was reading, this was just last night, I was reading in an article, and this article was talking about preventative measures for health, okay? I'm involved in corporate wellness and helping businesses allow their employees to be healthy. And so I was recently reading in an article about this one group. This is through United Healthcare. So I wanted you to see what they think is a good proactive approach to breast cancer. I believe it's an extreme intervention. So this is their words. For example, an older woman who does not want more children, who finds out that has a gene carrier, she has approximately an 80% risk of breast cancer and a 25% risk of ovarian cancer by age 70. May opt to have bilateral mastectomy and remove her ovaries, now decreasing your chances of developing breast and ovarian